Welcome to the Men of Iron podcast. We are in week 5.
Bringing it home, man.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Week 5 of our series on failing in the 5 Fs. How to go from failing in the 5 Fs to
Functioning.
functioning.
Yeah, we had to stick
or
the Fs there.
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah, how to go from failing to feeling good in the 5 Fs. Gosh, that's brilliant. Anyway,
I see what you did there. That was good.
Yeah, so we're talking about the 5 Fs, which are
Faith, family, friends. You take the rest.
fitness and finances,
Boom.
right? And
Yeah.
just this idea that we at Men of Iron believe that those 5 Fs capture the wholeness of a man, right? And that most areas of our lives can fit into one of those 5 categories. And if we can pursue balance in each one of those areas and even holistically across those 5 Fs, that we can thrive, right? So today we're wrapping up our conversation talking about finances. And this is an interesting topic, Ryan. Last week we talked about fitness.
Yeah.
And, fitness is one of those we talked about, like it's easy to see, right? If you're not thriving in your fitness, it's easy to see, right?
Yeah.
With your finances, it's vitally important.
Yeah.
But if you're failing, it's sometimes, right, easier to hide.
Well, certainly it's not something people like to share about.
No.
Like you sit in your small group and say, hey, I really, I have a lot of debt.
Yeah, gosh, this is not good, So, all
Or
right.
you hear about it when it finally becomes a crisis sometimes. Like
Yep.
people start to share about it when it's like, hey, I actually might get kicked out of my house.
Yeah.
But it feels like we could have more conversation about it earlier. It's
Yeah.
not something we tend to be open about.
Yeah. And so I guess our hope for today is, let's talk about first why it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Why is being a godly man, why is it important for us to focus on finances or stay balanced in our finances?
I think every single one of these F's could become an idol in your life. Maybe other than faith. Like faith is really important. Like worshiping God is not idolatry. But
Yeah.
every other one of these could be. And I think finance is probably one of the ones that it's easiest to have it sneak up on you
Yeah.
and realize, especially for men, that you are really driven primarily by the money you make, the things that you buy, right? For us, like consumer credit is so available in
Yeah.
many circumstances. It's a lot of times it's like the image that you're showing
Yeah.
and you don't even have the money to back it up.
Right.
But it's so easy for us to worship what money can bring us.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us probably need a little bit of repentance in this area.
Yeah.
Because it's just so prevalent.
Yeah. Well, and I think like the way we handle our finances, God calls us to be men of integrity. The
Yeah.
Bible has a ton to say.
A ton.
About money,
Yeah.
about finances, about debt, about providing for our families. Like it's all over the place, and it's one of those things where, if we're going to walk with integrity, and confidently throughout our lives and our workplace, it's an area we need to focus on.
100%.
Yeah. So like, what has your journey been when it comes to finances? Like, is it something, I don't know, is it something that you feel like you've done well, or like, how did you learn how to manage things? Have you struggled? What does it look like?
It's funny. I like having like one story.
Yeah.
I don't have like one story for this. I just know like my financial health is weird. It's kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
So when I came out of high school, I was really excited about not caring about money at all. Like my whole thing was like, I don't care. Like I went and worked in Florida at a ministry there. I was making $35 a month.
Yeah. Wow.
Now my housing was free. My meals were free. Like I didn't actually need money.
Still.
But like, it was not hard. Like money did not become an idol for me because I had none.
Yeah.
So like, I felt like I was in a really healthy place. Obviously I'm making more. Men of Iron now pays me $40 a month, which is a real blessing,
Yes.
honestly.
Wow, you made it. Yeah.
I'm not in that spot anymore. And really, like, I would say right after I got married, was probably like my worst area financially.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I just fell into this habit. It wasn't something that we planned to do. We kind of fell in this habit of using our credit cards, and we're like, oh, this is cool. We get cash back.
Yeah.
So it's dumb not to use them.
Yeah.
And we always pay them off. So what slowly happened in our lives, we didn't notice until it was like a crisis level. We just started spending more and more than we took in,
Yeah.
but kept saying to ourselves, we were like lying to ourselves, like, oh, we always pay them off. Like, it's no big deal. And then eventually it was like, oh, I couldn't pay these off if I gave my entire paycheck for the next 6 months. Like, I think we have a problem.
Right.
So we fell into it quickly. We didn't know we were falling into it at the time. This is another interesting thing about finance. Like, we believed we were doing a smart thing because it was like, Discover's giving us all this free money just to use their card. We get tons of cash back at Sam's Club. Why don't we keep doing this?
Yeah.
But we were like seriously in debt.
Yeah.
And the thing that I've found is the reason you go seriously in debt, I mean, outside of like astronomical things like a medical emergency or, some other thing, a lot of the reasons we fall into debt is because we are buying things that we cannot afford.
Yeah.
And the reason we're buying things that we can't afford is because our security is in our social status, our consumeristic nature. Like, we want more things.
Yeah.
And our hearts are drawn towards those things. And when they're drawn towards those things, we're actively moving away from Jesus.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy you say like just even marketing.
Yeah.
Because, hey, we're coming out of the holiday season,
Yeah.
and I mean, goodness, if you have a JC Penney card, right? You save 30%.
Use that cash back.
Yeah. So just get it done, and it does. Well, like, we fly free because I have a Southwest card, right? And if I get a certain amount of points every year, if you do the math, right? Like, what are the fees on that stinking card, which you could probably buy, your tickets for just because of the cost of the fees, but it's interesting and it's tricky, and you have to be, they say, like, you just have to be wise. I was thinking, what's the saying? Like, is wise as a serpent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sly as a fox. I don't
Innocent as doves.
Yeah, innocent as doves. But you need to know, because it's the same with the financial industry. I mean, I remember, like, I was a part of the financial industry when I was right out of college, and I started to learn, like, even when it comes to life insurance, all the different types of financial products that have been created to make companies lots and lots of money.
Yeah.
But, so they're going to, the person who comes to your house, they're going to sell you a certain product because it pays a certain amount of commission, which is way more than, they would make if they sold you what is really right for you. Mm-hmm. So it's worked against us, and we need to be really careful and educated about what the heck we're doing, So what's good, man. So we need to be wise about it. It sounds like, okay, so you were in a spot, you asked me this question, like, what was when was the oh crap moment, that you had, or what were the steps that you took to go from failing to rebalancing and being at least functioning?
I would say the inciting incident was when I realized we had 3 credit cards. We had been telling ourselves we could pay them off each month, but like, we just plain were not doing that.
Yeah.
And I did not notice that for a while. And so when it definitely, like, when it dawned on me, like, oh, this is bad. Because you have, say you have, I forget how much it was a couple $1,000s worth of debt that was like, I'm looking around, I'm not even living a better life because of this debt. Like, so we had to get serious about paying it off. And we even went through a period of time where it's like, okay, we're going to pay off this card.
Yeah.
Well, when we would pay off that card, we were just living on another card. So it was like, oh, we haven't actually adjusted the way we're living. We're just moving the money around.
Yeah.
So we had to actually write out a budget. We had to come up, like, we lived on cash for a while, like paper money.
Yeah.
And it felt incredibly restrictive because we had been living above our means.
Yeah.
And it had a lot of tension in it. Like, I remember my wife and I fighting about stupid things, like fairly cheap items. It was like, we don't have money for that. You got to wait another week.
Yep.
But man, when I talk to people about making a budget, so that's the thing, like, we made a budget and we made it work. People that don't have a budget feel like, that's crazy. I'm not doing that. Like, I need what I need, and I'm going to get it when I need to get it.
Yeah.
I actually feel so much more free living on that budget because I know I'm not going to end up in a place where I'm like, frick, like, for the next year, I have no income because I'm paying off this debt.
Gosh.
And I think, spiritually speaking, last week we talked about how when you're out of balance in one spot, you're probably out of balance in another spot. Whenever our debt has ballooned, we were 100% pulled away from Jesus further to something else. And I think every time that we're financially unhealthy, most likely our eyes are off Jesus.
Yeah.
And Jesus teaches that. Like, Jesus is pretty extreme in what he teaches about money.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's just crazy that, it's the same with, I mean, we talked about it like fitness,
Yeah.
it's like, but spiritual, it's a spirit, like money is a spiritual thing.
Dude. Yeah. 100%.
And it's just, it's crazy how God in so many instances, I feel like throughout scripture used money to teach spiritual truths.
100%. Yeah.
And so like, how do we use what we have for the glory and honor of God, And the thing, I know we're hitting it a whole lot, but the one that gets me is debt. For me, when me and Nicole started to get serious about our financial like lives, we had crazy amount of student loan debt, and I will just say, like, hey, if you're young and you're out there and you're not married yet, you better talk about this before you get married. Like I will admit that even before I got married to Nicole, now I would have married her anyway. Okay. So let's be clear about that. But I didn't realize she had the student loan debt that she had. And then and I didn't really even pay attention to it until we were years into our marriage. And I was like, what in the world is this? And then all of a sudden it's like, I had to get serious about like, all right, babe, like we got to figure our way out of this.
Yep.
So I would just say like, gosh, if you're not married yet or you're getting ready to get married, make sure you're talking about money, make sure you know the picture so that you can get on the same page and have a plan, So, yeah, man. All right. What else do we talk about when it comes to finances?
So I think we haven't talked much about like, okay, so we know not to go into debt.
Yeah.
What should we do with money?
Yeah.
And Jesus teaches that what we should do with money is not get things that just disappear.
Yeah.
So like don't invest in things that moths and rust destroy. I think that's what he says.
Yeah.
But invest in treasure in heaven.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
Heavenly treasure.
How do we do that?
Yeah.
Like how do we use our money, which is like a worldly, earthly thing,
Yeah.
To build God's kingdom? And when we start to do that, we actively fight against that idolatry.
Yeah.
So like when you're just buying cooler couches, that's finding your security in the world.
Yeah.
Like that's what the world does. They get cooler TVs. What somebody who loves Jesus does is like they figure out a way to invest in things that bring more people to him.
Yeah.
And he was teaching that on the earth. One of the things I noticed, I was just briefly getting ready for the podcast, in Paul's letter to Timothy, in both of them, 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy. In 1 Timothy, he says, anybody that's going to be an overseer of the church
So good.
cannot love money.
Yeah.
Like at all. Like there's no gray area here. If they love money, they need to be discipled further.
Yeah.
In 2 Timothy 3, he says that you'll know the end times are coming because people will be lovers of money. It's like, whoa, that's not a little thing. So Paul was kind of Timothy's mentor. And so he was teaching Timothy like, hey, this love of money thing, it's extreme. You got to stay away from it.
Yeah.
And so how do we fight against that? We invest in things that have eternal value.
Right. And yeah, live in a way that you need to be more dependable or more dependent upon God to provide certain things. I mean, I'm challenged by that all the time.
Yeah.
Is that like, gosh, how do I give more? What is unseen is way more precious than what is seen. That's another common theme that comes up. And so like, you can spend your money on things that are seen, but you can also spend your money to bring people to the Lord, right? Give to organizations that care for orphans and widows.
Yeah.
Like true religion is this, right?
Yeah.
To care for orphans and widows, and like even coming out of the holiday season, like, gosh, it's just another thing. How do you be more strategic about what you're giving to, and denying the flesh of things that we feel like we need or that we want that we don't really need or want, and that actually just cause strife anyway?
It's any of these F's.
Yeah.
Being disciplined in them is not something we fall into by accident. Like, you don't sit on the couch at home for 2 months and say, man, I accidentally invested all my money in the kingdom.
Right.
Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, you don't do any of this by accident. So you have to be really intentional. The other really interesting thing about this is like, Jesus does not put a dollar value on it.
Yeah.
So he's not like, hey, if you make $35 a month, you're in heaven.
Yeah.
Like the Lord loves you. Nah. And he doesn't say like, if you're crazy rich, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
What he teaches is like, deny these things and follow me.
Yep.
Even the rich young ruler.
Yeah.
I think it's like Mark 10 maybe. A lot of people look at that story and they're like, like he chose to love his stuff, because Jesus says, hey, sell all your stuff, give it to the poor, then come follow me.
Yep.
It's like, he trusted in his stuff. But actually what he did is he chose not to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
So when we choose to follow Jesus, a lot of these things fall in line because we
So
take
good.
on the values that he has.
Yeah.
So I think it's another one of those areas where if we're like really investing in our faith,
Yeah.
our finances will come into line.
Spending time growing our relationship with Jesus. Don't worry about the doing.
Yeah.
Because it's so like in all of these 5 F's, right? Oh, like, spend more time with my wife and kids.
Yeah.
Right. Honor my parents. What's the next step? Friends, go be intentional about friendships. What's the next one? Fitness, right? I need to get more fit.
Get
which
those
means,
push-ups, man.
I have to do this, right? Finance, I have to do this. Like you said, a lot of it falls in line. That's why we say that the first F is foundational. It's faith. If you're building your relationship with Jesus, he's going to lead you and he's going to guide you into doing what's right. Because I also think it's important to say that, like, even when it comes to money and finances, like, God has given people an abundance, right? And he's blessed a lot of people with the ability to be really wise in business and to make a lot of money, and praise God that he's also given them a heart, to invest in organizations and places and people and things that make a difference for the kingdom. And it's all about stewardship.
Yeah. Stewardship is the huge thing.
No matter where you are on the spectrum.
What we have is ours because God gave it to us.
Yeah.
It didn't actually belong to us to begin with.
Yeah.
So how do we use it to accomplish the things that God has called us to accomplish?
But perhaps we'll do a series specifically on this.
I think if you capture that stewardship idea, that like if you're blessed with a lot, like use it to build the kingdom. And there's so many really wealthy people who are really faithful to Jesus and have made incredible investments in the kingdom. And there are very many people who are not wealthy that have invested a lot to build the kingdom. And so once you have the idea that you don't have anything because you earned it, nothing.
Right.
You have it because God's enabled it. Then you can be faithful with God's given you. And so we just encourage you to do exactly that. And if this is an area where you feel like, hey, I'm just not doing it. Like I'm not killing it in my finances. I need help. Let us know that. Like reach out to us. Leave a comment on the video. Tell us like, hey, what do you need from us? Email us, whatever. Reach out to us so we can help you.
Yeah. One step at a time.
Yeah.
It's one step at a time. Hey, we're called to be balanced in the 5 F's, not failing in any one of the 5, but how do we remain balanced? And I think over the past couple of weeks, we've just pointed out the fact that it ain't easy.
It's not easy.
And that the only way that we can do any of this stuff is through the power of the Holy Spirit, right? Christ in us, helping us, nudging us to pay attention to balance in these different areas of our lives. So listen, we know it's not easy. We're on the journey with you. So we're excited that you joined us the past couple of weeks. Keep watching. Hey, we have all kinds of different opportunities on our website for you to learn, grow, whether it's mentorships, whether it's retreats, whether it's any of our free series, whether it's listening to more podcasts. Man, there's a ton of resources and ways that you can continue to grow. So join us in some form or fashion, but we're so glad that you're a part of this, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you later.
Hey, thanks for listening to our Men of Iron podcast. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you go to menofiron.org, or you can hit the subscribe button. You can ring the notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any future episodes. But again, thanks for checking out Men of Iron.